in my opinion, one of the places where the most calories are coming from without us actually realizing is more added sugar than anything else. Okay, so our intake of added sugar has increased tremendously. On average, we are getting about 384 calories every single day only from hidden sugars that are in our food. Okay, so if you see this table here, if you see, this is for women on the left and for men on the right, the red teaspoons are the teaspoons we are having in an average day of added sugar. And so for women, and an average woman is eating or getting in about 18 teaspoons a day of added sugar, and a man on average is getting about 26 teaspoons a day of added sugar. And that's close to 96 grams above your recommendation. Now, the recommendation is in the black box here. So for women, the recommendation is only 6 teaspoons a day. And for men, it's 9 teaspoons a day. So we are actually, like I said, we're eating 300 extra calories that we don't necessarily need on an average day. So that's the biggest empty calories that we are getting in. Okay, so the recommendation, the numbers that I have here, they're based on an average person's calories, and it's 5% of total calories. So this is going to be an exercise, an ongoing exercise that you'll be doing. So this is, like I said, the recommendation. So women need about 25 grams or less, about 6 teaspoons a day. And men need about 38 grams or 9 teaspoons a day. So what is added sugar? First, before we talk about what's added sugar, because I keep saying the word added, let's talk about what's not added sugar. So a lot of foods that are whole foods that are natural, like whole fruits, for example, they have sugars in them. And these are not the added sugar. So these are not the ones we are concerned about. These are natural sugars and they are part of a healthy diet, and we're not so concerned about fruits. Now, the other places where natural sugars come from are grains. So for example, whole corn, white or brown rice, barley, couscous, quinoa. These are natural sugars. There's some natural sugars in these grains, including carbs, but there's natural sugars in there too. So these, we won't count them, but for bread, we'll count that because bread is processed. It's not wheat anymore. It has other things added to it and comes in a package. So whenever things come in a package, they're something that we have to look at. Other foods that have natural sugars in them are going to be dairy products like milk, yogurt, and cheese. If it's not flavored, you don't have to count the sugar in that. There is natural sugars in there, but we're not concerned about that. Yogurt, if it's plain, we're not concerned. If it's flavored, then you're going to look at that. You're going to look at the food label. And cheese, in most cases, cheese don't have added sugar. So we're good with cheese. Okay. So what is added sugar then? The added sugar is any food that don't naturally have, or whole foods that don't naturally have sugars in them. I know honey is a whole food in a sense, but it's still a sweetener, right? So we are going to count honey or sugar, even syrup, maple syrup, all of these, because they are sugar, they're sweeteners. Natural sugars like honey, syrup, jam, jelly, white sugar, brown sugar would be something that you're going to look at. And then other things like, flavored juices, flavored drinks, sodas, obviously you're going to count that. Now, the thing about added sugar or added sweeteners, the sugar that you add to your coffee or to your tea, you will actually, if you're thinking about it right now, if I'm guessing that you're wondering, oh, I'm putting 2 teaspoons of sugar in my coffee, or you will be surprised when you go ahead and this week and you start tracking your added sugar, you'll be surprised that's the least of your problems. About 1 teaspoon equals 4 grams. And so even if you did 2 teaspoons, it's still 8 grams from your total 25 or 38 grams. The real problem is the other foods that you don't think has any added sugar in it, but they do. That's where the actual problem begins. So this is foods like desserts, your sweets, your chocolates, obvious ones that we know are sweet. But then a lot of packaged foods like breads, cereals, your granola bars, your granola cereal, snack bars, mixed oats, all of them, if you start looking at the amount of sugar in there, they usually go above and beyond how much we are supposed to get. And then pretty much all baked foods like donuts, pastries, muffins, cakes, croissants, all of them have a lot of added sugar in there. So these are ones to watch out for. Okay, so I'm just going to show you some examples, some very basic, easy examples. Okay, so if you look at these pasta sauce, they don't taste sweet at all, but they can have between 6 to 12 grams of added sugar in just a half a cup of serving. Okay, and if you look at granola bars, and I was telling Dr. Saima that the granola bars are usually the worst. You know, they're promoted as health products, but they're usually either they have a lot of sugar or they have a lot of saturated fat. So usually I try to discourage you from granola bars when you can, because it's kind of hard to find a good one. So a single serving can have between 8 to 12 grams. And this is what I'm going to encourage you guys to go and look at when we are done today, to go and look at the food labels and see how much added sugar is in our foods. And yogurt, if it's plain yogurt, like I said, you don't have to count that. But if it's added sugar, it can have quite a bit of sugar in there. So, okay, so again, if you see salad dressings, instant oatmeals, all of these have some hidden sugars in them. I'm going to just show you on juices and drinks. I think these are the easiest ones to cut out. If you see a cola, it has 9 teaspoons. That's a man's budget of 9 teaspoons a day. That's pretty much all your soda, all your daily budget gone in just a Coca-Cola. So if you look at even iced tea, I know a lot of people cut soda and then they go to iced tea, and I tell them it's pretty much the same. So iced tea also has quite a bit of sugar. Then if you look at most fruit juices have quite a bit. And I don't care for energy drinks, but if you do, then just, we want you to start making better choices going forward. What can you live with and what can you live without? And then we'll go from there. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so how are you going to start measuring? Now, when it comes to added sugar that you are adding to your tea, coffee, and stuff, you're going to start measuring using measuring teaspoons. And like I said, you'll realize these are the least of your worries. Okay, so the thing is that when we use our spoons that we use for eating and drinking and eating, those tablespoons and teaspoons we call tablespoons and teaspoons, they aren't the best measure. I would invest in getting some measuring teaspoons and measuring cups, because that's the best way to portion control. So if you haven't used measuring teaspoons at home for adding your, let's say, sugar or honey to your drinks, then I would change that. Start using, start with half a teaspoon and see which level you're good with. And whenever you put on your teaspoon, make sure you level it off. Don't use heaping spoons, just level it off. This is just to get you started to know where you're starting. That's the whole plan, is we want to be aware of what we're doing and then how we can move forward. Okay, so 1 teaspoon, an actual measured teaspoon flat, is 4 grams of sugar. So that if when you're tracking, you're going to put, if it's 1 teaspoon, you'll put 4 grams. If it's half a teaspoon, you'll put 2 grams. So that's how you'll be doing this. Next is you're going to look for anything that's in a box other than plain yogurt, other than milk, other than cheese. And obviously fruits and vegetables don't come in a box, which is great. And also breads. These are, you're going to look at the food label. So it's usually on the bottom here, sugar. Yeah. Another tip I'll also tell you is now sometimes it can get confusing, right? Like which has natural sugars, which is added sugar. So what I would do is look also on the ingredient list. Sometimes this is a good indicator. If you look at, so ingredient list is based on the weight of the product. So the heavier, the most weight is on the top of the list, and then it goes down from there. So if sugar is listed in the list, it could be sugar, there are other words also, then you want to calculate the sugar for that. Okay, let's say you're doing pasta sauce, okay? And the pasta sauce, if it doesn't have any sugar or sugar related words on the ingredient list, then you're not going to count it because it's probably whole and natural sugars in there. Does that make sense? So other words, most of the time, if any word ends with the word O's, that's a sign that it's sugar, like, anhydrous dextrose. Let me see here. Dextrose, fructose, lactose, sucrose. So those would be one thing. You're also looking for either brown sugar, confectioner's powdered sugar, corn syrup, glucose, fructose, high corn syrup, all these words, honey. So these are all added sugar. So this is going to be your challenge for this week, to look for these words. It shouldn't be in the top few ingredients of the list. And if it is, then you're going to put that as a number to see how much your added sugar is. Okay. There's something, on the workbook, you have a tracker. I've given you one for 7 days. So you'll be adding the foods eaten, the serving size of whatever you ate, and get the grams of it. You're doing this for 7 days. And ideally by the 3rd day, you'll have a pretty good idea of how much added sugar you've had. And from day 4, you're going to start deciding what I'm willing to keep and what I'm willing not to keep, and start reducing it. Take your time, you don't have to go all the way to the goal target, but I want you to work towards it. So don't beat yourself up. That's the whole plan. Okay, don't beat yourself up. If you are less than 96, you should reward yourself that you've been doing a pretty good job, and then you work your way back.
And again, if you're not ready for it, that's fine as well, because maybe you're not in the action phase of the change.
Absolutely.
Maybe you are in the contemplation phase, or maybe pre-contemplation, because it's a new concept, right? So as I told you, as long as you have open minds and you are ready to hear, it's all good.